Most men think foreplay is just the warm-up before the real action starts. A few kisses, a little touching, and then you move things forward. But what if that mindset is exactly why she's not fully letting go with you? What if the intensity you're chasing actually depends on slowing down first? A lot of men quietly wonder, why does it feel like I'm doing everything right, but something's still missing? Or worse, why does she enjoy it, but not completely surrender to it? The truth is, it's not about effort, it's about understanding how her arousal actually builds, and most guys were never taught that part. In this video, I'm going to show you 9 powerful, often forgotten foreplay techniques that completely change how she responds to you. These aren't flashy moves or performance hacks. They're grounded in psychology, nervous system science, and real relationship dynamics. Because when you understand how anticipation works, how emotional safety fuels arousal, and how pacing creates intensity, you stop guessing, you stop rushing, and you start leading the experience with calm confidence. This matters now more than ever because modern intimacy isn't about performance, it's about connection. And when you get this right, everything deepens, for her and for you. If you want deeper arousal, you have to understand this first. Her body doesn't respond best to pressure. It responds best to safety. Female sexual response is closely tied to the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for relaxation and openness. Research published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine consistently shows that stress, anxiety, and cognitive distraction are some of the strongest inhibitors of arousal in women. In other words, if her mind is racing, her body won't fully engage. This is why rushing rarely works long-term. Arousal isn't just about stimulation, it's about regulation. When she feels emotionally safe, her cortisol levels drop and her body can shift into a receptive state. Blood flow increases, sensitivity heightens, pleasure builds more naturally. Here's the part most men overlook. Emotional presence is physiological foreplay. If you walk into intimacy carrying tension, urgency, or performance pressure, she feels it. The nervous system reads subtle cues, tone of voice, breathing rhythm, pacing. When you slow down, breathe steadily, and move deliberately, you signal safety. And safety allows surrender. This isn't about being overly cautious or passive. It's about grounded leadership. When you regulate yourself, you help regulate her. That's not theory. That's nervous system science. Before intensity can rise, her body has to soften, and that softening starts with you. So what does this actually look like in real life? It starts before anything physical escalates. Instead of immediately reaching for the most sensitive areas, begin with neutral contact. A slow embrace. A hand resting on her lower back. A steady, unhurried kiss. Let your breathing slow down intentionally. When your body relaxes, hers mirrors it. Most men move too quickly because they're afraid momentum will disappear, but urgency creates subtle pressure, and pressure activates tension. In my experience, the biggest shift happens when a man focuses on helping her exhale. When she feels your touch without expectation attached to it, her shoulders drop. Her jaw softens. Her body leans in instead of bracing. You can even pause for a moment. Forehead against hers, eye contact held just a second longer than usual. That quiet space signals there's no rush. And here's what's powerful. When she feels that safety, her desire often accelerates on its own. You're no longer pushing the experience forward. You're allowing it to expand naturally. This isn't about doing less. It's about doing it with intention. The question is simple. When intimacy begins, are you trying to create intensity, or are you creating the conditions that allow intensity to grow? That shift alone changes everything. One of the most overlooked drivers of intense pleasure isn't friction, it's anticipation. Anticipation activates dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with desire, motivation, and reward. Neuroscience research consistently shows that dopamine spikes more powerfully in the anticipation of a reward than in the reward itself. That means the buildup often creates more excitement than the climax. Studies from the Kinsey Institute and broader sexual response research suggest that variability and pacing significantly impact arousal levels. When stimulation is constant and predictable, the brain adapts. The excitement plateaus. But when there's rhythm, pause, and unpredictability, the nervous system stays engaged. Here's what most men misunderstand. More intensity does not equal more arousal. Escalating too quickly can actually flatten the experience. The brain needs space to crave. It needs contrast. Closeness followed by brief distance, stimulation followed by pause. Anticipation works because it keeps her mentally involved. Her imagination starts participating, and when the mind engages, the body follows. This isn't about teasing in a manipulative way. It's about pacing in a way that respects how arousal naturally builds. When you slow the climb, the peak becomes stronger. The goal isn't to rush toward release. The goal is to stretch the moment so desire has room to grow. In real life, this looks like restraint, not hesitation, but controlled pacing. Instead of moving in a straight line toward more intensity, allow waves. Kiss her deeply, then pull back slightly and hold eye contact. Run your hand along her body, then pause and let the sensation linger. Whisper something grounded and confident, then let silence do the work. Those micro-pauses are powerful. Most men are afraid that if they stop, even briefly, the momentum will disappear. But in my experience, the opposite happens. The pause creates tension, and tension, when it feels safe, builds hunger. You can feel this shift physically. Her breathing changes. Her body starts seeking you instead of passively receiving. That's when anticipation has taken over. Another key detail: vary your rhythm. If your touch becomes repetitive and predictable, her nervous system adapts. Small changes in pressure, speed, or location keep her engaged without overwhelming her. Think of it like music. If the volume stays high the entire time, it loses impact. But when there are crescendos and quiet moments, the experience becomes immersive. So here's something to reflect on. Do you rush to maintain control of the moment, or can you slow down enough to let desire build naturally? That patience is often the real game changer. If you really want to transform intimacy, you have to understand this. For many women, arousal begins in the mind. Physical stimulation matters, of course, but psychological engagement often determines how deeply she responds. Research in attachment science and sexual response theory shows that emotional attunement increases oxytocin, the bonding hormone associated with trust, closeness, and pleasure. When she feels emotionally seen, her body becomes more receptive. This is where many men unintentionally fall short. They focus on technique, timing, or performance, but overlook presence. They assume desire is automatic if attraction exists, but desire expands when she feels chosen, not just accessed. There's also something called responsive desire, identified in modern sexology research. It suggests that for many women, desire doesn't always appear spontaneously. It emerges in response to emotional connection, context, and stimulation layered with meaning. That means the way you look at her matters, the way you speak to her matters, the way you notice subtle details about her matters. Arousal isn't just friction, it's interpretation. Her brain is constantly asking, do I feel safe? Do I feel desired? Do I feel valued? When the answer is yes, her body follows. If you engage her mind with grounded admiration and emotional presence, you create the psychological fuel that intensifies everything physical. And that's where deeper intimacy begins. So how do you engage her mind in a way that feels natural, not scripted or forced? It starts with attention. Slow down enough to genuinely observe her, the way her breathing shifts, the way her body responds to certain types of touch, the subtle expressions on her face. When you comment on something specific, not generic, it signals that you're present. Instead of broad compliments, try grounded observations. Tell her you love the way she melts into you, or how her confidence draws you in, or how her energy changes the room. Specificity creates emotional impact. In my experience, most men underestimate how powerful calm verbal desire can be. When you speak slowly, maintain steady eye contact, and express attraction without urgency, it activates something deeper than surface-level excitement. It tells her she's wanted, not rushed. Another overlooked detail is tone. If your voice tightens or speeds up as things escalate, she can feel the shift. Staying grounded communicates leadership and stability. That steadiness allows her to relax into the experience rather than evaluate it. This isn't about saying more, it's about saying what you mean, and meaning it. When she feels emotionally chosen in the moment, her body opens more fully. So here's something to reflect on. Are you focused on what you're doing to her? Or how deeply you're connecting with her while you do it? One of the biggest mistakes men make during intimacy is focusing too narrowly, too quickly. When attention jumps straight to the most sensitive areas, the nervous system can become overstimulated before the rest of the body is fully engaged. And overstimulation doesn't always lead to stronger pleasure. Sometimes it leads to withdrawal. Research in sensory neuroscience shows that the skin is the largest sensory organ in the body. Areas like the neck, lower back, inner arms, scalp, and thighs contain dense networks of nerve endings that respond powerfully to gradual, intentional touch. When stimulation is distributed across the body, arousal builds in layers rather than spikes. Think of arousal like a dimmer switch, not a light switch. If intensity jumps from 0 to 10, the experience can feel abrupt. But when stimulation rises progressively, the entire body participates. Blood flow increases more evenly. Sensitivity heightens. Pleasure becomes immersive instead of localized. There's also a psychological component. When touch travels slowly across different parts of her body, it creates unpredictability. Her mind stays engaged because she doesn't know exactly what's coming next. That unpredictability fuels anticipation. The goal isn't to get to the main event. The goal is to make her entire body feel included in the experience. When her whole body is involved, the climax becomes fuller, not just stronger, but deeper. And that difference matters. In real life, this means broadening your focus. Start with areas that aren't typically the center of attention. Trace your fingers slowly along her arms. Let your hand rest on her waist without moving for a moment. Kiss along her collarbone or the side of her neck. Slow, intentional touch creates awareness. Most men rush because they think intensity equals passion, but measured pacing often creates more powerful reactions. When you move slowly across her back or hips, you give her nervous system time to register sensation fully. Another key detail is variation. Change pressure subtly, alternate between fingertips and full palm contact. Move from slow strokes to brief pauses. These shifts keep her engaged without overwhelming her. In my experience, when a man expands touch beyond the obvious, her breathing deepens and her body begins responding more actively. She leans in, she arches slightly, she seeks contact instead of just receiving it. That's the shift you're looking for. Also, pay attention to feedback. Not just verbal cues, but body language. If she moves toward your touch, stay there a little longer. If her body tightens, soften your pressure. Full body engagement isn't about complexity, it's about awareness. So ask yourself, are you exploring her entire body, or are you rushing toward a single destination? The journey is what intensifies the ending. As arousal builds toward climax, something subtle but powerful happens. Vulnerability increases. Sexual response research shows that as someone approaches orgasm, the body enters a heightened state of neurological activation. Heart rate increases. Muscle tension rises. Breathing changes. But alongside those physical shifts, there's also emotional exposure. Letting go at that level requires trust. This is where many men unintentionally disrupt the moment. As intensity rises, they speed up abruptly, they change rhythm, they tense their bodies, their breathing becomes erratic, and even if the physical stimulation continues, the emotional steadiness disappears. The nervous system notices that shift. When you remain calm and regulated during high intensity, you signal safety. Your steady breathing and consistent pacing tell her, you're okay, you can let go. That grounded presence supports her parasympathetic system even as arousal peaks. There's also a psychological component tied to control. If she feels like you're chasing the climax instead of guiding the experience, it can create subtle pressure. Pressure introduces hesitation, but when you stay composed, you create containment. And containment allows surrender. This isn't about being detached. It's about being centered. The stronger your internal calm, the easier it is for her to release fully. Peak pleasure often depends less on intensity and more on stability. And that's a skill. In real life, this means resisting the urge to panic when you feel her getting close. If her breathing changes, if her body tightens or pulls you closer, your job isn't to suddenly increase speed or force. It's to stay consistent. Maintain the rhythm that got her there. Keep your touch steady. Let your breathing slow instead of speeding up. In my experience, the men who create the most powerful climaxes aren't the ones who do more at the last second. They're the ones who don't disrupt what's already working. Eye contact can be powerful here, if it feels natural. A calm, focused gaze reinforces connection. If eye contact isn't her style in that moment, a steady hand at her waist or back communicates the same grounded presence. Another overlooked detail is your own body tension. If your shoulders tighten or your movements become frantic, she feels that shift instantly. Relax your jaw, slow your breath, keep your movements intentional. Think of yourself as the anchor while the wave builds. When she feels that stability, she can stop monitoring the moment. She doesn't have to think about what's happening next. She can simply experience it, and that's often when the intensity becomes transformative rather than just physical. So here's the question. When things get intense, do you chase the finish? Or can you stay calm enough to let it unfold? Let's bring this home. If you remember anything from this video, remember this. Intensity doesn't create powerful climaxes. Safety, anticipation, emotional connection, full body awareness, and grounded presence do. When you calm her nervous system first, you give arousal space to grow. When you build anticipation instead of rushing stimulation, you amplify desire. When you engage her mind, not just her body, you deepen trust. When you explore her fully, you expand sensation. And when you stay steady as intensity rises, you allow her to truly let go. This isn't about tricks, it's about awareness. Her body isn't complicated, it's responsive. And when you lead with patience and presence instead of pressure, you don't just improve intimacy, you strengthen your confidence as a man who understands connection. That's real mastery. If this shifted the way you see foreplay and connection, make sure you like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of these techniques do you think most men completely overlook? Or what's one change you've made that improved intimacy in your relationship? Your insights help other men learn too. And if you want to go deeper, in the next video, we're breaking down the biggest intimacy mistakes men make, especially the subtle ones that kill tension without you realizing it. You don't need gimmicks. You need understanding. I'll see you in the next one.